Managing state is something I've been very interested in ever since I've heard about Redux in 2015, I believe. So I've tested a lot of options, including aforementioned Redux, its toolkit, Mobex, Jotai, and finally Zustand. Hi, my name is Tomasz and I'm a former technical manager. Today, I will answer the question, is Zustand the state manager for React applications? Before we jump into development, let's stop for a minute and discuss what is application state in general. In the simplest terms, it's a data container allowing to read and write values needed across the application. A good analogy is a bulletin board where everyone can post something and read something. So the building administration is placing a notice that there will be a rent increase from the next month, and every tenant sees it. It is available to everyone interested for reading. But you as a tenant also have access to the board, so you can write an ad saying that you want to sell a sofa. Both informations are potentially beneficial to other people in the building, but you won't leave a note for your spouse there, right? Because this is an internal message, only valuable to you two in your apartment. All right, so we know what a state is and what are its usages. So where does the state manager comes in? Well, basically everywhere. It should provide an interface to communicate with state, so to read and write messages to it. You as a user should only send a message, and it's the manager's responsibility to put it in a correct place and make sure it's available. If we go back to the bulletin board analogy, building administration is responsible for placing the board in a visible spot and keeping it clean. Often I saw and even see today state managers abused to a point where they are basically a God object. A God object is a data container which houses basically too much data, like user data, but also user posts, internal configurations for particular parts of the application, routing, basically everything you can think of. This is a huge anti-pattern because it leads to tons of problems, most notable of which is over-reliance on a single part of your code. But it's also hard to maintain, hard to split, because a lot of the times values are basically interconnected, so different domains are mixed together, and it's very hard to refactor and very hard to test in isolation. Best to keep state very thin. It's best to make sure that at least 2 or 3 separate components in your application need the information before you put it in a global state. Demonstrate the usage of a state manager, let's try to do a login mechanism. User logs in, the information is stored and available across the application. As always, I will be using an empty TypeScript project with React and Vite and Tailwind. And today, additionally, React Router. So let's jump to the code and see where we're going. So I've built a small application with a login screen and a dashboard. Right now, nothing is secured in here. You can access the dashboard even if you are not logged in, but the logging itself works. So if you write wrong credentials, it fails. If you write correct ones, it should work fine. The login component itself is very simple. We have a login state, which is simply a state that has stale, loading, error, and success, with stale being the default. So stale is when nothing is happening, loading is when transaction is processing and we don't know the result yet. Error is if the backend responds negatively, whether there's an error on the backend or the credentials are wrong. And success is where we are correct. We have correct data and we can move forward. I also have credentials as a ref with an object inside. I am using ref to avoid re-rendering on form changes. I have a handle change function that will capture the form event of an input and put this uh, in the ref. And I have submit that will simply check if username and password is passed, and we'll set loading, and then we will trigger the function handle loading, handle login, which is extremely simple. This is not a backend. This is just my 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 simple promise. And if result is successful, we set result to success, and if not, we set the state to error. And if we have a login state of success, we are triggering an effect that will navigate to the dashboard after 1 second. In here we have a simple HTML form with field set, with some legends, and with the form itself. So on submit it does handle submit. In here you have label input, again label input, and for the checkbox we have input and label, because this is a basically moved, and we have a button that has a type of submit with the login, right? And if our login state is loading, so we are displaying a spinner, and if it's not, we are displaying a simple login text. And if this is an error, we are displaying please try again. If this is a success, we are displaying redirecting. This can be done in a much cleaner way, but to be completely frank, for demonstrational purposes, it's kinda not what we are here for. So we have the login, which is here, and we have the dashboard, which just looks like this for now. Nothing really happens in here, and we can access it. And yeah, nothing happens. Right, so this is handled by React Router, so we have routes, and we are basically importing login and dashboard, and we are creating the router. This is a browser router, and we have path and element. The simplest configuration you might want. And we have main, which imports router and basically creates a router provider. That's it. And we are importing the index with Tailwind. So this is the simplest setup possible. The pure configuration, the pristine state of this one will be on the Git repository, so you can clone this. You don't have to, write this on your own. Right. So what do we need? Because we have an app, it renders properly, so we need to bound our login mechanism to a global state, because right now the dashboard doesn't know if we are logged in and just displays everything happily. And we don't want this. We want to inform the dashboard that, yeah, I am logged in or I am not logged in. So our basically our diagram will look like somewhere in here, like this. Our diagram is looking like this. So we have user logs in, and if credentials are valid, we are redirected to dashboard, and if credentials are not valid, we are displaying an error message. Very, very simple. Right, so let's start by installing Zustand. So npm Zustand. No, what do you? It just came on its own. Right. So we have Zustand installed. So let's start by creating a state. So new file state slash user.ts. And sorry, and let's create a new branch. I forgot about this. So fit zoo state. It's called state. Right. So we need to create a state. So the first thing I like to do is to define what the state will look like. So interface, and let's say user store, because the store is a part of the state, and getters. And what do we want here? We want is logged in as a boolean, which will default to false, obviously, and we want username to be either a string or a null. Exactly, because this always will be there, but sometimes it will just default to a null. And we want setters, right? So interface user store setters. Obviously, you don't have to do this. You can just define everything as one interface, but I kind of like to have this like that because this is just cleaner. So we are setting set login state. This will be our first function. So we are just going is logged in. Oh, God. Exactly. Is logged in is a boolean. So we will just be defining a function that will accept one argument that is of a boolean, and we want set username exactly, so it will accept the username, and that's it. So now we can define user store will be getters and setters exactly, and now we need to import create from Zustand and well create. Sorry, it's kinda, kinda easy, so it already uh, suggestion. So use user store, because Zustand works as a hook for React. So you define it using the use keyword, and then you can simply use it inside your application. Right. So correct. Hold on. One missing. Right. So a brief explanation. We have a set here. We can also have a get, which will be a getter, but for this situation, we only need a setter. So we define is logged into false. We define username to null, and we define, yeah, kind of like this. And it's good. So no errors or anything is defined. Right, so where are we? Sorry, I got distracted. Right, so we have the store, we have it exported. So now let's save it and let's try to extend our login with it. So first off, sorry, not here, import use user store from state user. Cool. And Zustand by default uses a selector strategy, so you can go is logged in, use user, maybe even not get state, because get state is not needed here. So state exactly. Right. I love this. Defining in the wrong places. Right. So we don't need these things. Right. So is logged in. What set username and set login state, and basically we can, I mean, we no set logged in. This will make more sense, because this information doesn't have to be elevated to a global state. No other part of the application should know what is the process of our logging in. Applications only need, rest of the application only needs to know what is the result of the process. So we are setting is logged in. All right, so we have handle submit and we have then, right? So we are setting here set is, set is logged in, logged into true, and we are set username to this. And in here, we don't actually have to set anything, but just to be sure, set logged in to false, just to be extra safe. So in use effect, we have a login state, but we can use is logged in to already bind this to our global state, so we don't have any state disparity. This is not really needed in this tiny example because these states will, this one and this one, they will be more or less in sync and it wouldn't affect us greatly, but just to be clear and just to be safe, we are bounding this to our global state. And this is it. So let's now try to go to the dashboard and make our dashboard, let's call it secure. So we are importing again use user store, and in here const is exactly and not authorized, correct, sorry. And we can, we can import use navigate from router and just have a use effect is logged in, and in here if logged in we want to set timeout and sorry, const navigate, use navigate, we want to um, set timeout that will fire in 1 second, navigate to, yeah, I mean we can do this even routes, sorry, routes home, to be, to be completely safe, to not mess up anything. Navigate. Right, because effect is bound to it. So now let's try accessing the dashboard. Cool, not authorized, and it logs out. So this is what we want, right? So now let's try to log in. Since this is Spooktober, I am impersonating a famous character from the classic Dracula novel, Jonathan Harker. Jonathan Harker at Hawkins Real Estate Co. UK, and the password is Mina. It was in like 19th century, so internet security wasn't really a thing back then, so this password is good. And redirecting, cool. So we are in the dashboard and it works fine. But if we refresh the page, we are losing every information. This kind of doesn't make sense because we want this to be persistent. So let's add persistence to our state. And this is actually pretty cool in Zustand because we can add persistence layer in create JSON storage, and we can use this wherever we want. We can create a local storage. We can we can use local storage, we can use session storage, we can use cookies, we can use a separate area like probably in IndexedDB, or if we can even make a backend transaction if we would like to. Right, so this is really not that hard. So what we, sorry, I'm looking here. What we want to do is to cut this and go with persist. No. Sorry, I kinda lost myself here with all the brackets. All right, so we have this and now persist, and in here again set man set Yeah, it's not really my day today. And in here we put the persistence configuration. So name user store, and why are you suggesting such bullshit? And we want storage to be create JSON storage of local storage. So we will use local storage in here. And what we don't want to keep in the state is the username. So let's do something that's called partialize. So partialize is a function that will accept state and will basically return only the objects we want. So this can be a function like a filter or object reduce. If you convert this to array, this can be basically everything you want, but we want to keep is logged in as state is logged in, and that's it. Although, oh no, let's keep the username as well, just to be sure. Okay, so in here, let's just take const username, use user store username and hello username, just to be completely, completely sure. And I realized that this kind of doubles because is logged in will be false if username will be null and vice versa. So we could just use the username, or we can create a selector like state username is null, right? This will be basically the same, but I like to keep store clean, and I like store to have information that answers the question, and computing the state is it is a good solution sometimes, but if there are like low hanging fruits, easy solutions, easy answers, I prefer to have it defined, even if sometimes this means doubling the information. Right, but we have our persistence, we have it here. Let's try to again Jonathan Harker Hawkins real estate co UK Mina. Good. And now let's refresh. And it stays. Let's see how it looks. Let me just move myself here. User store. Yeah. So it has the state and it has version. Versioning is not really that important right now, but it does have this feature. So yeah. One thing though, it's not really dashboard's responsibility to verify whether user is logged or not. Dashboard's responsibility is to display hello, right? So what we can do here and what React Router allows us to do is to place a loader in here. So we can say in here, look, check this before you even render this. Before you even go here, let's check whether user is logged in. So we import use user store, and loader is an async function. I mean, it doesn't have to be async, but I don't think it has to be async. But in general, it has to return something, right? So the important thing, this is not a hook and it's not a component. So this is just a function. And we have use user store. So this is a hook, right? Yes and no. What's great about Zustand is that it returns a hook upon execution. So if we are execute use user store, it returns a hook. But if we don't execute this, it will just be an object. It's extremely important to note that this is by no means a production ready solution. keeping such information in the browser is a huge security risk. Normally, you would perform a call to your API to verify either token or session. This is only for demonstrational purposes, and remember, this is not a production solution. So we can go with is logged in, use user store, get state is logged in, and this will be completely fine. And we just go with redirect, and if is logged in, redirect to home, otherwise return null. And in here we can go with something opposite. So if we now go here, you see I cannot even access this login screen anymore. What we can try to do is we can, throw this key away, and now it won't allow us to the dashboard. We can't go there. This is the Zustand state manager. As you see, it's extremely easy to use. Simple pure selectors, simple store definition. There is not much to think about. There are no providers, there are no dispatchers, reducers. Of course, you can implement these patterns in here, but should you prefer to do this in a simple way, you can. And this is, in my opinion, the best state manager as of today. It is production tested, it is very performant, it's very easy, it's good to test. So I don't really see a reason to use something else. As you see, Zustand is a very powerful and modern state management. It doesn't have the overhead of Redux, and it brings everything you need to the table. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and happy coding.